meaningless reason. Nobody feel left out is the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes. WUB. And all the things that will happen and I got blue skies. And nothing that people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We got to keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody got to put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WUB. Get up, make every day count. Don't waste it, people. Do your part, play a role, get where you need to. You can tune in for work or in your vehicle. If you got a problem, pick up the phone. Why wait? It's a time calling. It's a show with no matter even if you're at home. Just call in. WUB. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We got to keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody got to put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WUB. Be yourself, see yourself. This is a show, my people. Belize our hope, so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out is the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes. WUB. And all the things that will happen and I got blue skies. And nothing that people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We got to keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody got to put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WUB.
All right, welcome. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize, Morning Vibes. This is a Thursday, the 6th day of March and also the 6th day of Ramadan. I'm Nuri Muhammad and we welcome you to the... we have certain steps that we go through. Those of you who are part of this family, you know that we give you a look at the weather first and then we bring you up to date on the news. We do have guests coming in this morning very early. As a matter of fact, we have 2 guests coming in today. We're looking forward to you staying with us all the way through our program today. Tariq Matthews is our forecaster, and we go now to him.
Good morning, Billy. The tail end of a very weak cold front near the area is influencing our weather. The 24-hour forecast: sunny with cloudy spells today and partly cloudy to cloudy skies tonight. Showers will be isolated, with slightly more occurring mainly over northern and central areas today. The maximum temperatures for today will reach 84 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 87 inland and 76 up in the hills. The low temperatures for tonight will be around 77 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 72 inland and 67 up in the hills. The winds will be from the east-northeast at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea conditions will be light chop. A low tide will occur this morning at 8:07, a high tide this afternoon at 2:33, another low tide tonight at 10:51, and another high tide early tomorrow morning at 5:32. The sun will rise this morning at 6:07 and will set this evening at 6 o'clock. The moon will rise this morning at 11:16 and will set after midnight at 1:06. In the sargassum forecast, moderate impacts are expected to continue as a few sargassum mats continues to drift into our area. The outlook for Friday and Friday night is for fair and mostly dry weather conditions. Little to no rain is expected. In the fire risk forecast, The risk for forest or bushfires will be low. For a review of our forecast and other products, please visit our website at nms.gov.bz. With that, we end this morning's forecast for the Belize National Met Service.
The first private radio in Belize, 1989. Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
Donald Trump is currently engaged in a tariff war with Canada, Mexico, and China. There's been much said in the media of late about how the tariffs will affect the citizens and economies of those countries, but will it also affect Belizeans? Yesterday, Catherine Megan, the president of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, BCCI, told the media that Belize will be affected by the increase of the cost of imported goods.
An increase in cost. And it comes right back to what we were talking about, right? And you know, each country has to do all it can to be able to have the most stable, predictable, and I know that's a theme of our discussion, but it's really important. Stable, predictable, and growing economy. With those challenges that are coming from outside, we have to prepare for an environment where things will increase in cost. We are primarily an import-driven society. That means, and where are these items coming from? Many of them, even if they're in transit, they move from the United States. What does that mean? Also, there's other angles to that. We are so interconnected when it comes to do with the cost or the details that has to do with where some of these ships that are bringing these items our way are coming from. And what does that mean when this sort of environment, and lack of a better way of saying it, trade war is really happening around us? It means a couple things to me. It means one, we need to do a better job at figuring out how we can make our business environment, our economy as stable and working as efficiently as possible. And secondly, we have to start to take the actions of being a preventative type entity or nation so that we can prepare for what is to come, because we know it's going to mean increase in costs.
The People's United Party had promised campaign finance reform in its 2020 Plan Belize manifesto, but that never materialized. In 2023, the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry developed a draft campaign finance legislation bill that would bring regulation and transparency. Nothing concrete resulted from the proposal, as it never attracted interest from the government. On Wednesday, the new chamber president, Catherine Megan, told the media it's still something they are trying to achieve and will bring up the topic with whomever forms the next government.
We have shared, and this is known, we've done this for quite some time, a potential regulation, a draft regulation for that to be considered. This is a topic that will continue to be a priority for us. Tax reform, corruption, labor force and matters related to that, and also energy and infrastructure. Those are the fundamentals that we all need in order to create that healthy economic environment for the business community, but across the board as well. Corruption and the topic of preventing of corruption via campaign financing is a topic we intend to bring right back up with whichever administration wins, and it's not going to come off the table for us because it's the path to a healthy democracy in my view.
Commissioner of Police Chester Williams took 2 days to tour the irregular border crossings along the Belize northern border with Mexico at the Rio Hondo. The tour began on Tuesday. He was joined by the Commander of Operations of Belize Police Department, Mr. Alford Greenidge, and the Northern Regional Commander, Senior Superintendent Christopher Noble. Also joining the tour were Superintendent Aaron Gomboa, the commander of the Special Patrol Unit, ASP Marciano Mejia, who heads the Mobile Interdiction Team, and Inspector Jamin Casanova, who heads the recently established Highway Interdiction Team. And objective of the working visit is to learn about any challenges being faced by the commanders responsible for the northern operation, so as to find ways to increase efficiency and to maintain effectiveness. In a Facebook post on the department's page, it is notified that, quote, with heightened cartel activities in neighboring Chetumal, it is only prudent that we reassess our operational objectives to ensure no vulnerable areas are left exposed to potential spillover effects. We remain committed to targeting local Belizeans known to associate with cartels in an effort to disrupt their activities. In a recent interview, the commissioner told the media that they have been largely successful in their operations, but up north. In June of 2023, $1 million was allocated to supplementary expenditures to fund the operations of the police in the north. The government continues to maintain those operations. When the term corruption is brought up, people typically expect the conversation to be about politicians or someone in a leadership position. However, the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the BCCI, wants Belizeans to realize that they too can have a hand in corruption. Yesterday, the BCCI President Catherine Megan explained that political clientism or exchange of political support or vote for goods, services, or money is also a form of corruption. She said Belizeans need to learn the value of their vote.
The value of somebody's vote is very significant. There is power in your vote. If you choose to give that away or to offer that to somebody else in exchange for a short-term benefit, and it will more than likely be a short-term benefit, are you really doing yourself a service, or are you really hampering yourself and hampering those around you? How are you going to benefit from that? And I think people need to remember about that.
On February the 12th, Ministry of Home Affairs, which oversees public and bank holidays, announced that Election Day, March 12th, will be a national holiday. It was explained that it should assist in giving more voters time off to go cast their vote. Yesterday, BCCI President Catherine Megan lamented that such unplanned holidays are costly for businesses. She said that a recent study showed unplanned holidays cost businesses millions of dollars.
It means that ultimately there will be an added cost, and the bigger the businesses, the more impactful that is. And ironically, the ones that are being most impacted have been themed and identified as priority areas within our business community. We're talking tourism, which makes more than 40%, which covers more than 40% of our GST. We're talking BPOs, which is a very significant contributor towards GDP growth and development in terms of salaries, etc., and standard of living, etc. People are moving up, if you want to say it that way. And last but not least, and these are just the three big areas, because there are others as well. We're talking about all the industries that have 24/7 operations. And how significant are those 24/7 operations? We're talking BL that's going through its own challenges right now, we're talking Boeing, etc. And so, is that the sort of business climate and environment that we want to do for priority areas that are contributing significantly to the development of the economy? And I'll tell you, in 2020, we identified that each unplanned holiday is costing in the millions. When you look at it from a general perspective, we're actually trying to tabulate and get a more updated figure, because we know since 2022, it's definitely increased for all the reasons that we've talked about. So what does that mean? Our intention is, again, immediately following the elections, to have a real solid, healthy conversation with the parties at B to really discuss the impact, so that and what we hope is that this is remembered and thought about and considered when this sort of idea comes up.
Megan also lamented that the week already has a public and bank holiday on March the 10th, and a second one will affect productivity that week.
Yes, exactly. So, we all talk about it, and, and I know that, there's a lot of conversations about the favoritism and the need for a holiday and so forth. But outside of that, again, do we really want to set up an environment where we have short-term gain for long-term loss? And it's a similar theme. In this case, we have the 10th holiday, which is already planned, and then we now have the 12th. What does this mean for the 11th? What does this mean for the 13th, right? What does this mean for productivity throughout that week? That's a cost. And that's a cost to those that are the voting public.
That's our news package for this morning. There is more news coming up early this afternoon, right after the morning stew, about 12:30. There's also one at 3 o'clock and a full news broadcast at 5:15. All this on CREM Radio. Here on XTV, we bring you the entire newscast at 6 o'clock this evening. It's now 14 minutes to 7 o'clock. We'll take a short break, come back, open the phone lines. We have guests coming in after 7, but I think we have some time to dialogue before we get to our guests. Stay tuned.
The first private radio in Belize since 1989. The news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports.
Welcome to Atlantic Online. In this
All right, welcome back. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. It's a Thursday morning, the 6th day of March, 2025. We welcome you. As I said, we have guests coming in today, and our first one is already here. He is Mr. Arthur Usher. He's the manager of the Hub. You pass it at the time you pass that Chettomal Street, and you look on your right, you see that huge brown building, the Hub. It is actually the Resource and Community Center. It is a government program, and we've invited him here because their main focus is on young people, and the majority of our population is young people that have to be prepared. I want to also make some comments on a sit-in that I had at the UB, observing some young people with great promises. So we need to talk more and more to engage our young people, and it is individuals like this who have tremendous experience, one-on-one relationship with young people that can give us some insights. So having set the background, this I know your first time here, my brother, and so we welcome you.
Yes, man.
We
Thanks,
welcome
thanks.
you. Yeah.
It's always been great coming and talking about these issues and bringing light to these things.
I wanna start by giving a kind of a background on a little bit about Arthur Usher in terms of I reminded you just now that I met you about 30 years ago as a young, very energetic youth. I don't know if you were probably still in high school, but you were very energetic, very engaged. Can you give us a little bit of your history over that 30-year period of what brought you to where you are now?
Right. So, indeed, at that time, I think I was very involved in not only youth social activism stuff in Belize. At that time, Belize had a lot of youth groups. So we were always engaging and interacting with each other. And that made for a very good, vibrant youth active youth system. And I think that led to some youth parliament things that we did. And so I think after that, so as any young person would, you try to wet your hands in different areas, right? So
try find yourself.
Right, try find yourself. So coming out of sixth form and all of this,
yes.
with my art major, so I tried art for one spell, then I went back into, I think I was with you at the prison. Yes, working with the youth population at the prison. And so it's always been a passion. So the fire never leaves. Yes. Kind of died on a bit, and some realities happen over life, and
clearly
you have to get a job, make sure you do things and stuff. I think that's part of the youth and growing up. I diverted a bit and followed some other passions in terms of like banking and stuff like that, but I think I had to come back just because, again, like you said, it's the passion. And so after that I went to BFLA. I was at the National AIDS Commission for a while, and then now I'm here with the Hub. Again, along that line, over that period, I accomplished the bachelor's degree in social work, which also helps with that area. So there's also the passion and the technical side have to go together in order to make the proper decisions. Right.
Indeed.
So and to influence these spheres.
That's a very important point you're making, because many of us who start off trying to help youth, it's a passion that comes out of your almost like your bleeding heart. I want to do something for these youth. And many times you don't develop skills necessary. You don't academically prepare yourself. You're just running on that steam of energy that comes from your passion of loving youths. But it's clear that there's a need for us to have a kind of for want of a better word, a scientific understanding. First of all, what created these problems that we are addressing, and what works and what doesn't work, which does require kind of scientific look at this thing, as opposed to knocking the same thing over and over. Way work on that, I will love you to death. You see? So show us some of what you have learned in terms of approaching youth development in a structured, again, for use of another word, but I think science brings it across, a structured approach to youth development as opposed to just personal energy?
Right. So I think one thing I've learned over the years is that, and it's a bit of a cliche, everybody is different.
Okay.
So each child has its own set of issues or complications. And so I think the science part of it helps you to quickly pick up on some of these issues. Because everybody has telltale signs. When they move, when they operate, when they talk, you're giving off information.
Right.
And so we always have to be aware. And the science helps us to say, okay, yeah, you're saying this consistently, this is why.
Yeah.
Right? And so then when I find the why, I can remedy the issue. Rather than to say, oh, but it's always the wine and get trouble. Yeah, that's because I'm not picking up on the signs as somebody who is not trained to see these signs.
Yes.
And so that was, I guess, part of some of what I had to learn to really do the work consistently and to create that change over time. And so I think that's the area that I really appreciate, you know, in terms of those. I got a passion and I want to do it, but
just see those feeling.
Right.
Well, clearly the feeling is important, but
Right.
you need to be able to analyze what you're dealing with.
Right.
Give us the experience of exactly what you've said just now in real time, in terms of seeing some youths that have certain types of behavior. You're only seeing the behavior. You're rude, bad,
Right.
you like cuss, you like wild kind of ways, but you don't know the environment in which he comes, and if you don't go into that environment, you don't know what the product of that environment is. So talk about the distinction of just dealing with the surface and really rejecting, you know, all of what may have caused that you see at the top.
Right. So actually, I'm doing some sessions with some of the kids at the hub, weekly sessions, and part of that is also the same analogy of what you see at the top of the iceberg and what's at the bottom that you don't see, which is usually more.
Right.
Right. And oftentimes we do deal with just what's on the surface, the rude boy behavior, like you said, and we try to band-aid it, right? I think the work to fix or look at what's under the surface is more difficult sometimes.
Yes. And scary.
And we are scared. We are afraid of what we will find, because then that branches out to a lot of areas of the society as to why we get that rude boy that we're seeing, or that rude girl, or whatever it is.
Right.
But it's essential to create the change, right? So if you want to really attack or build interventions around that mountain peak that you're seeing, you have to deal with what is underneath. And that takes consistent work, right? So the social services sector within Belize and all these other areas that are helping out and trying to pick at it, and they're picking at the root. They're trying to pick at the root. I think in terms of looking at the picture from one perspective is often misleading. You know, we kind of classify young people into one big group, and we kind of put them in. But like I said before, everybody's different. Everybody has different issues that they're dealing with, and so we have to look at things holistically and within that person's sphere, and who he is, who she is, and how we truly deal with whatever issues they're
I hear you saying, Arthur, really that we can't apply the idea that one size fits all.
Okay.
We have to individualize, analyze exactly what's going on with this individual.
Right.
Many times, as you say, at the bottom of that iceberg, there's parents, there's community, there's institutions, there's government.
Right.
But many times, what creates that issue at the top has to do with some dysfunctionality at the base.
Those things, right?
But your job is to deal with the top.
Right.
And that thing at the bottom, if I could call it like a factory, continue to produce more problems. So how do you, having been a career person dealing with young people, how do you deal with that? In other words, it's almost like I clean you up, I put you out there, and you get dirty again because the dysfunctionality of what it's producing. That. So how do you deal with that as a scientist? And I call you a scientist because you're approaching this thing scientifically. When you may not have that much influence on what caused that person to be the way they are, how do you then start to deal with him? When you send her home, you get the same environment like where you come here this morning with.
And so I think that has been part of the consistent issue. And I think the hub deals with multiple issues. And so I think that's what kind of attracted me to want to pursue the hub because I saw the potential in dealing with those underneath issues. So a young person comes to the hub maybe for one resource. So maybe they would come for just doing their homework. But because we have a lot of services within that one building, I can then point and direct and help them in different areas. So if they would need counseling, I would refer to the counseling department. If they need a social worker, I speak to the court and case management. If we need to give them resources for school, we can find these things for them. And so we have the teacher there to deal with the homework. We have computer labs that they can do their
so you got a multi-service.
Right, and we have a sports facility. So it's physical, it's mental, it's psychological, it's trying to build the child. And we also try our best to have communication with the schools and the parents. So again, as you just mentioned, the underneath has all these other factors. So our teachers have tried to build relationships with the schools. And we get feedback from the schools and the parents. So the schools will call and say, well, you know, I see development in the child, you know, you read better. And it's okay, good, we know how to proceed. And so it's a constant information sharing in terms of how to build a child. And there will be resistance, but you know, it's consistency. I think that's what builds it.
Well, the concept of a hub, and it's becoming a very popular term now for describing multiple efforts in one area. Tell us about the other agencies that are working within. I know you're the manager, but I've heard you talk about rehabilitation, I heard you talk about court management, high school, helping with homework. Who are the other agencies working in the hub?
So the hub is one unit under the community rehabilitation department.
All right, good.
So there's the
so that's the overall arching. All right.
Right. So you got Ministry of Human Development, and then you have community rehabilitation department, and then you have the units.
All right.
Right. So you have the court and case management unit, which deals with the social workers and going to court. They also deal with juveniles as well. And then you have the counseling unit, who specifically, well, it's in the name, they do the counseling services.
Right.
You have the hub, which is one of the units. The New Beginnings Youth Development Center, which is formerly Hostel. They come under us as well. And we also have the Criminal Records Secretariat. And then within our space also there is the management team for all of these areas, obviously. So that's what encompasses within the building.
What would intrigue me just now, you say that you all come together, you're all in the same building, and you said that, for example, if you determine that the child needs something dealing with court, you have someone on the compound that they can begin to deal with. A lot of our young people, and I don't like to generalize on this point because it is a very Belize City focus analysis of our young people. Why are they involved in a crime? But when you travel the country of Belize, as I've been blessed to, most of our youth, they're not involved in no kind of crime. All right, they have the potential because of the economic situation to get into dishonesty and that type of thing, but they're not criminally bound. There's not a culture of crime. But what we see in Belize City is a growing culture of acceptance of criminal behavior and the normalization of criminality, which you would not see if you did a PG, for example. So my point here to you is, in this challenging environment, what's the approach that you will take to say, for example, a young man as early as 14, 15 years old now can end up in prison? Okay, he may end up in a situation where when he comes back out, and people may say, well, we are talking about, we send on a hostel, we say that. No. I can tell you, we end up with some young persons that are incarcerated for serious crime. So how would the hub approach that kind of situation?
So it depends how the referral is made. So so one of the other units, if there's a court case and then there's a social worker attached, maybe the social worker might refer the child to me, saying, okay, Mr. Usher, the child has behavioral issues, this, that. The court wants the child to do maybe 2 months at the hub. And so that's a mandated child, right? So the court is saying, in order
so like with the whole approach of hostel, the court can actually mandate that the child must.
Yes, it's an option, right? It is an option. Again, the hub is preventative work.
Okay.
Right. So we're trying not
to let
have
them
the
go
child,
to incarcerated.
And so, as best as possible, minors will be referred to less hostile environments. We're not sending them prisoners. Right. So.
Okay.
The hub is now an option. And so the social worker might say, well, Judge, we have the option of the hub. Okay, can the child do 2 months of community service or whatever it is and that kind of thing. So again, while the child is there now, we can then look at the counseling. We can then look at these other supplementary services. We can also then have conversation with the parents, right, to say, look, after this program, you need to do this. So there's building of that iceberg underneath. In terms of walk-ins, so the hub is free for anybody walk in and say, okay, I just want to play some ball or I just want to do my homework. So again, when they just walk in, I would engage and say, okay, give me a name, and I will take some basic biodata information to follow up with them. And after a period of time, so there's a very inviting, youthful energy at the hub. And so they'll come, they meet their friend, they hang out, play ball. But then there's a conversation that I would have with them while they play ball. Okay, so where to do? What school do they go? Where your grades look? And based on that, I'm doing my own little assessment and building that relationship. And at the end of the day, I can say, okay, I will help you like this. All right, you ever think about this? Make you try this way. And so then, based on their level of commitment, then that would start these wheels going, right? And then I can say, okay, well, look, counseling center, I have a young man here, he needs counseling, and I refer, and I bring, so they get the services they need to build themselves, right? If we can't do it, then we have to find other agencies that can help out and that kind of thing.
When we look at the challenges, again, facing our young people, and I guess I'm kind of city focused again, particularly South Side, because, that in terms of scale of problems, we can't deny right? That the squeaky wheel won't get it greased, because this is, in fact, where a lot of the challenges, in fact, exist. So when we look at some of these challenges facing a young, innocent child growing up in an environment where there's poverty, there's socioeconomic disparity, you want to go to school, you got the ambition to go to school, government to do its best to try to provide education as reasonable, in some cases free of cost, right? So kudos to the government for doing its part to ensure. But at the same time, there are other surrounding challenges that are, because poverty brings those kinds of challenges, disparity brings those kinds of challenges, and so you may have a situation where we may not even know how to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us. How do you deal with those challenges there?
So it's to a degree some level of promotion, like we're doing right now, speaking about the hub. We because of where we are physically within Lake Independence area, initially we would serve Belama Farbers Road and Lake Eye. But over the years, and the kids bring their friends from different areas, and so a lot of people have been coming from different areas. So knowledge of what we are and who we are has spread over the years.
There's only one, just that one hub, or do you have several hubs? Just one hub.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, we just celebrated our 5th birthday, March 2nd.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, good.
And I'm watching the numbers grow.
Okay.
Right. And so right now we're looking at close to 90 kids every day, and we provide a feeding program. So every day they come in, they get a small snack. Okay. And then, they get all these other services. So again, recognizing a lot of those issues underneath that iceberg. A solid meal is one of those issues. So we try to meet that as best as we can. Everything at the hub is free. You come in, you get these services. But how do we deal with not knowing or recognizing what the hub is and coming in? So you mentioned that there's only one hub, right? And there's only so much. We have limitations as well.
Precisely.
And so my hope is to see one in each district, right?
Is that your plan?
That's my plan, but we have to look at.
I know you're engaged,
right?
But,
right. So
that's your vision.
That's my vision, right?
Yes.
Because of the success that we've gotten. I think it's something that is extremely needed to alleviate.
And achievable too,
and
right?
achievable. Like you mentioned, PG not having some of these issues that the city have. 20 years from now, they might.
Indeed.
Right, so they definitely will need some support with the right.
Because the virus is down there. It's just not as acute as up here, but the virus is there.
So we have to look at prevention. Like I said, the hub is a preventative tool.
Indeed. Well, another one of the challenges that, and there are many challenges that face our young people, and in some ways it is unfair to them because they came up in the environment. They didn't perpetuate that. No, there are some young people, and I'll get to that a little bit later on, who is the cause of their own problems because of their behavior. But many of them innocently grow, and this is the hand, as some people say, this is the hand I was dealt with. And so when we look at the statistics, for example, we see a significant, in the educational area, we're dealing with dropouts, particularly boys who are not going on from primary school to high school, and then from high school on to tertiary. And as I said, I was on the UB campus a couple of days ago, and it is very obvious that there's a minority of boys in there and an expansion of young women who are taking advantage. And this is not a criticism, but just an observation. But it begs the question as to, what do you think is happening, why boys are not advancing into these technical fields and increasingly becoming hang out and finding a culture of not being engaged?
Yeah, I think that's been happening. We've seen a lot now, but it's been gradually happening for 30 years, 35 years.
That's right. But what are the causes? That's the point.
One of the main things that I'm working on some documents surrounding that as well. I think is our culture of I guess machismo or manliness, and looking at the numbers like you said, right? So from primary school to UB, you would have maybe half in primary school. By the time you reach UB, 80% girls, 90% girls, 10% boys. It is a range of reasons, but for me, it has to come down to how much you want it as well. There's an option, right?
But you're putting it on the boy again.
Well, I'm not blaming the boys. I'm saying, look, we have to also do our part. There are resources, obviously, because the girls are getting the resources. At the hub, again, it's fair across the board. We try to provide school books, tuition, stuff like that as best as we can for our members. Personal drive also comes from seeing leadership, right? And so, how many of these boys are actually seeing male leadership, right? To really motivate them, right?
You're getting into a very, very sensitive area.
It's a serious area. Because
how could I be a man if I know the same man
right, and that's our next thing, right?
I see a lot of male,
but
so I could be one male,
right,
but what is a man?
Right, and so we have to watch what are the influences surrounding that. What are we celebrating in men? What are we celebrating in boys? What are we telling them they should be? What are we telling them makes them men or boys, right? And if we're sticking to, I hate to use this word, but if we're sticking to some of these traditional value systems and the world is moving in other directions, how do we find our place, right? And it's not to give up who we are in any way, it's also to understand that the world is moving in other directions. How do we find our place? We can't continue to hit our head against the rock and expect the rock for broke, right? You broke your head first, right? And so while we can sit and blame systems and they never provide this and never provide that, what is on us? What have we not done, right? So oftentimes the boys will come to the hub, and I have a lot of boys. I have a lot of boys.
Because they got free time too.
They got free time.
Yeah.
But also what I've noticed with a lot of the boys is lack of motivation. The girls will come and do their homework and then do the social stuff. The boys will come, sir, I just want to relax right now. Right? And I allow that space. But then it's to get them back into that focus. But once they're in the focus, they're good to go.
I'm glad.
How do you do that, right?
I'm glad that you're mentioning that this is a problem that you've been seeing over the last 30 years, because indeed it's, and I can say from my own research and observation, is that there's a similar pattern taking place with boys. For example, in Jamaica, Trinidad, St. Lucia,
right?
It's girls that are far more advanced. And the boys and the girls, they start kindergarten together, they start primary school together.
Right.
But the right, wrong, standard 5, standard 6, you start to see the girls take it up. So I'm asking your opinion as to, what is it that causes boys to not see the seriousness that the girl who's right there with him can see? That I can move up here if I put in the work, whereas the boy is saying, you don't need to do that. What is causing that? Because it's around 14, 15 years old. So what's going on?
Sometimes I classify it as a bit of that radical leadership age, where there's an innate part of boys to just like go their own path. It's not justifiable, but I think it's something that we all practice around that age, at teenage age. And again, this is where the systems come into play. So if you have that natural tendency to go towards your own, but you would then need now that voice saying, look, you could go towards your own in this direction. Going towards your own doesn't mean giving up on all the other systems, right? I often speak to the boys, I speak to all the members about goal setting, right? So how do you plan? How do you look at your future and say, okay, well, I want to be this, how will I reach there? Right? Which would then entail staying in school if you want to be, entail staying in school. So if I want to reach, I have to do this, right? And I think it's a more practical approach, especially with boys, to say, look, this is the vision. It's a physical, because of our makeup, I think we tend to think a bit more physical in terms of what we want to do. So, okay, if I want to be Coast Guard, the minimum requirement for Coast Guard is this. So how do I reach that? Right? It's walking them through it step by step, going back to my point of that individual conversation.
Very important. And mentorship.
A mentorship, right.
Well, listen, let's take our first break for 2 Cents Scam, which is brought to you by Fort Point Security. But we'll open the phone lines when we come back and continue our conversation. I got some real sticky points there to save you for later on. And this is WUB on a Thursday morning. We'll take the break for 2 Cents Scam.
Watching WB. This is XTV. Big up to our sponsors, 4 Point Security. And there's a lot of conversation about how people value their dog and how important their dog. I don't want to find out the people in 2 cents if they shot their dog or if a regular person hit their dog, what should that be the penalty? We could find out the people in 2 cents because people love their animal. I don't want out of that if they shot your dog. What kind of justice you don't want? What are your 2 cents?
My 2 cents, my penalty for that.
You're not a dog, man. You did a dog. I know you did a dog. And I know you're not a dog lover.
I didn't have to pay, man. We have to pay for you. All right. Cruelty to animal.
Cruelty to
animal.
All right. Yeah, you're 2 cents. Yeah. Right. What you think about, what you think should be the penalty with them dog? Like if they're not shot or dog, or shot and dog, what are 2 cents per now? What do you think should be the penalty?
Well, dog looks like a human too, you know. It's like a human, so that's why I have to separate.
Yeah, you're 2 cents.
I'm at 2 cents.
I like the part beat of it.
All right.
But well, to be honest, if you kill my dog, you have to compensate me, or either make sure I get back the same type of breed of dog. But it not be no big issue.
That you're 2 cents.
Roger.
Boy,
I know you love your dog then too.
I love my dog, but then they say people don't love dog. And when you don't love dog, you don't love God.
What kind of justice you don't want though?
Man.
Can you invest in your dog?
Yeah, I invest in her, so I want peace and I want justice. I'm calling out for justice.
right, interesting conversation with the brother Arthur Usher. He is the manager of HUB, a very innovative program being run by the government, which is a comprehensive program to deal with youth challenges and to charter a way for young people to achieve development, which is the objective of the ministry overall. Our telephone numbers here is 280-5848, so you can join us in the conversation. I wanted to go back to a kind of a controversial area, Arthur, where it has been noticed, and I need to get out of the Belizean environment because sometimes people think that I am only making reference to Belize. But it has been noticed in several environments, and I used to say particularly among black youths, but my study has shown me that it's far beyond just black youths, that Professor Jankufu says that there appears to be a feminization process that has been taking place over the last 40 more years, coming out of the United Nations, trying to address the disparity, inequality, and suppression of women. And they made a concerted effort for an empowerment process for women, all laudable. Clearly, they were trying to address something that exists and still exists, right? But in that process, programs were developed, empowerment programs were developed to try to change the mindset, starting with the mindset of the girl herself. So you had these orientation from very young, you had this trainer of trainers program to develop our young girls, and several programs that have been for a woman's area. And so this idea of a woman's department came out of this UN concept. So you could go all over the Caribbean, there's a woman's department for specialized focus on women. But it begs the question, that effort to bring up and to empower women, particularly as it relates here within the Caribbean, was a very successful process. Because our women today are far more advanced in terms of being prepared to deal with some of the challenges. And I know I want to get criticized, but that's okay. I've been criticized on this matter, but I could stand on science. So it appears at the same time that this empowerment process was taking place for our girls and our young women, it wasn't taking place for our boys. And so the opportunities to jumpstart the system to get girls up to speed was left behind with the boys. So the girls passed the boys down. And so we're faced with a reality now where throughout the Caribbean, and this also can be seen in the black community, particularly in the United States, that boys are dropping back and becoming more familiar with non-structured life. And I don't like they know they make advance because the whole hip hop and thing come out of boy when they drop out of high school, never gone and nothing, and just learn the how to handle themselves. And their history has been like, if you get in a hip hop and you get in a basketball, you could make it. You could skip the whole school thing and get rich. So the reality is now that programs such as yours are challenged with finding that girls are more susceptible to taking advantage of opportunities to advance. Whereas boys, like you say, when they come in, I want to do homework later, but make me play some basketball first. Whereas the girl will say, I want to do homework first before I recreate. So talk a little bit about, firstly, what is your observation of that? And does it match what I've just mentioned? Is that kind of broad view? And then how do we challenge that to try to bring boys up the scheme? Is it creating a men's department? Is it creating a men's commission? I mean, what's the process?
You touch a lot of things there.
Sorry, sir, I'm sorry. Our number here is 280-5848, and it's the kind of engaging conversation that we need to be brave enough to have. 280-5848. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think it's from a. I always look at it again, going back to some of that technical speech, but the humanistic point of view, right? And if we are to move our society forward, we have to invest in every part of the society, which includes every person, and to have fair opportunities for every person across the board. I think that is the safest way. To your point, I do think that, again, the intention was great and it worked.
Yes.
Right? Because indeed, women were not they were not being fairly treated.
They were being oppressed.
So the same thing, we had to figure a way to get them where they needed to be. You know, sadly, I don't think that the resources were given to boys as much. I'm not sure what the resource balance was, if it was programmed specifically just for girls, and we give 80% of the money to the girl program and 20% to the boys. But at the same time, the girls were moving along, the boys were falling behind. And it's obvious, again, now it has become a culture, right? I think when it first started, like you said, 93, these years, I was in high school, primary school when it first started. So there was still a culture of you go to school and you do things. So even boys and girls knew we were to do this.
If I work hard, I want to make it.
Work hard, I want to make it. If I work hard, if I pass school, I want to give a scholarship. I think over the past 30 years, 37 years, it has become a culture of, I want a better word, but we're accepting less, right? And
you mean as boys, as males?
As the society.
As a society.
As a society,
okay.
we're accepting mediocrity.
Okay.
Right? And so we say it's okay to just maybe finish high school. Or it's okay to just get one job. Right? We have to continue to strive for excellence. And I think that is where we fail. There's always, in my mind, growing up, there's always this idea, I have to work harder, I have to be better. Right? That is what hurts me when I see the boys, when I work with my group, when I see girls do it too. That this idea of it's okay to be where I'm at now. That to me is the true poison.
Mediocrity.
Right? Mediocrity, right? If I accept my bare minimum, then what's the motivation? Right? I won't seek these services. I won't, because I'm already accepting my situation. And so, if we look at the disparity between boys and girls and all these other things, the social system have said, well, look, we are putting into place these mechanisms for girls to help them come up. The mechanisms still exist, but how do we then put that to boys, right? Now that they're in this position of mediocrity, right? So now it's even harder now because they themselves don't want to challenge themselves because they don't see it viable, right? Why should I put in this amount of work if I'm not going to get the benefits, right? And I think that's where the mentality is. It's the mindset now that's part of the problem.
One of the examples that was used by the professor I referenced was that if you look at a laboratory model of the behaviors that we're looking at, you'll see that if you put a mouse in this area and put the cheese in front of him, and as he moves towards the cheese, you prevent him.
Right.
Whether shock or whatever, you prevent him. You prevent him.
Right.
And then you put the cheese over here, but you put all kind of complications in front of that cheese. He will keep trying to get into that more complicated area because he don't know when I try going into this area, I will get shocked. So I don't even want to try that. I want to keep trying, even though this area is an area of danger, I want the cheese where they're behind this danger, and I can't get there, so I want cheese. So he says we need to be able to observe is it the individual or is it the structural environment that we have? So that we need to make sure that the attention that we have placed on girls now has to be concertedly placed on boys as almost like an affirmative action to make them catch up.
Right.
Because if you go another 30 years like this, our women will be much, much further advanced than we.
Right.
So we'll take our next break and come back. Remember, our phone lines are open and our guest is our brother Arthur Usher.
Enhanced service and fast
We have just enough time to get our guest, Mr. Arthur Usher, some closing comments. Clearly, this conversation is a huge conversation, but we just wanted to look at the success of this program, the hub, of which you are the manager. But I'll give you a closing point here. Only have 30 seconds, unfortunately. So I'll ask you to make your closing comments.
Well, as I said earlier, we celebrated our 5-year anniversary this Sunday, what passed. And I wanted to say the success of the hub, how we've grown within the community, how the community has accepted us and really made us a part of who they are. We started out average maybe 30, 35 kids. Right now we're up to nearly 90 kids per day, consistently, and that's ages 6 to 17. We get some older than that sometimes, and we provide as much support as we can for all of them. Our relationship with the community has grown, with the teachers, the parents has grown. I think it truly is speaking to that under the iceberg situation that I mentioned earlier, and just really bringing across the needs of our people and how my final point would be how to duplicate, how to make this bigger, how to expand, how to add more programs, and how to engage the private sector as well and other partner agencies in building something for the community. We're all a part of the community. Invest in us, make us better, and then we can make you better as well.
Excellent.
That's basically it.
Thank you very much, our brother, Arthur Usher, manager of the hub. We'll take our next break, and our next guest, Dr. John Sosa, is already in studio. We'll be back after this break. All right, welcome back. This is WUB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes on a very exciting Thursday morning program, and we welcome you to the program this morning. Our next guest is well known, of course, Dr. John Sosa. He's a neurologist. He's a person we call a brain doctor who specializes in physically understanding what's going on with your brain, but clearly we also know there's another part, which is the psychological aspect. So we've invited him over the last few years periodically to come in and to inform us, and he's here again with us this morning. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome, Dr. Sosa.
Good morning and welcome to, and thank you for the invite again, Nuri.
Yes, sir.
And welcome to all the viewers and good morning to them. And I hope the conversation proves fruitful, at least in some aspects, and may help someone this morning.
Let's hope so. It usually is, Doctor. Let's talk about a topic that has become a main conversation over the last few years. Maybe you could tell me why you think it is. But we're now hearing about mental health. We're seeing issues like the tragedy down in Independence, where the policeman shoots this young man who was obviously going through an episode. We've seen videos of people, chasing policemen, acting out on the street and going through various problems. As a scientist of the mind and a scientist of the brain, what can you tell us is happening there?
Well, truthfully, you have several aspects to things like that, right? Unfortunately, in any population, some people will have a mental health issue. That is just life, right? At all, we ban 100% good. And then our environment plays a big role, right? And obviously, the social fabric of this country is not what it should be. So our support systems are not what they should be. So a lot of people basically are on the street without good support, family, social services, government. And basically what happens is that people start to fall through the cracks because they don't have, somewhere to live or somewhere to stay, or they don't have the medications that they should get, or they don't have the social services they should get. Lots of things start to go wrong, right? And so we have people who wander around, right? And may at times be violent depending on the kind of brain problem or mental health problem they have. So you do have some people who will get violent, and obviously enough, if you're without all the support you need, things go wrong. So then you have violent episodes on the streets or in the home, right? And things kind of get out of hand, no? So the basic thing is we need to improve, however we can, our investment in the social aspect of the thing. And it's when I say social, that means like having more health professionals, having more social workers, having more people, because you have few people who do volunteer and take food out, and I know some of them who take food out there and try and help.
Yes.
We need homes or houses for these people to stay in at night, because if you have all of that, we like say, oh, then I want to go stay at the place. But if you start from the beginning that these people are calmer and more cooperative, they will go and stay somewhere at night. Mm-hmm. They won't stay in the street as much. You will have some people who will. Mm-hmm. You cannot have a society without homeless, truthfully, even in the best countries in the world. Mm. But you do have countries where they actually pick up the homeless and forcibly put them in some place, right? Yeah. You do have that, like Singapore, for example. Mm. But we need to do better with our social services, and then the police will have less interactions. And at the level of police, well, that's a different story. That's just training, right? Now, as we well know, you can't just train everybody good. All of we are different standard of learning, right? Yeah. So my standard of how I learn is different from someone else's standard of learning. Maybe not better or worse, just different. Mm-hmm. So sometimes even though we train people, the training doesn't get through. So training don't mean train one time. training means every 3 months you do something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Over and over till you find out how you deal with this population. And you have the tools to use to deal with a population like this. Because you don't have to actually just shoot somebody, you could have another tool to use, right?
Yeah.
So you have different aspects of the conversation when it happens, right?
So it's and you said a lot there, and let me look primarily about how people respond to when a person with a mental issue begins to get violent or out of control. I would imagine that we are only seeing a small part of those who are having problems when it becomes acute and they get public. But I imagine that in their home environment, they are also expressing a lot of that.
Well, of course, many families bring, and it's not only young people, you know, because when you get old, you have people with dementia who also get violent, for example.
I'm going to get to that.
Right? So many times, you know, there's a stigma involved sometimes. So people kind of hide their family issues and the things that are happening within the family structure. But they may have sons, daughters, whatever, who have mental health problems, who do get violent at home, break up the place, break up the walls, break up the TVs, and they kind of not say anything, right? They just come and say, please help me, and if you cool down this young man, and that happens very frequently.
I could imagine,
right?
I could imagine.
So even within the home, it happens even more than on the street.
Yeah.
Much
I'm
more,
glad you're
truthfully.
saying that. So really what we're seeing on the street, so to speak, is only the tip of the problem.
Exactly, it's the tip of the iceberg.
I know that one of the issues that seem to not get discussed quite, you know, publicly is this idea of bipolar. I want to first ask, is this only a psychological expression of a problem, or is there an actual brain issue when it comes to bipolar?
So actually, every psychiatric problem has a brain structural problem in a sense. Not structure maybe in the way the brain looks, but in the way how the brain works. Right? Remember our brain works at an electrical, biochemical level, right? We send signals all over the place. And sometimes those signals being sent, and the type of signals being sent, we call those neurotransmitters, are not what they should be. And they always have a genetic basis. A lot of these things have a genetic basis for it. Or you just get brain damage when you were the band, or before when you were inside your mom. No? Things like that can happen. So what happens is that there is an actual problem with brain function. It's not an imagined thing, right? It's not, just psychological. You do have purely psychological issues, truthfully, but not at that very severe level. So you have the basic mental health problems that are actually brain issues where the brain is not working the way it should. All right? Okay. So, like for example, you said bipolar, but you have schizophrenia or schizotype personalities, other mental health issues. They do have a fundus where the brain actually just isn't working good. It's not made as someone else's brain.
So how do that parent out there who has that 13, 14-year-old, where they tear up the house every so often and can't seem to be under control, what is your advice to him or her?
So they need to seek, obviously enough, advice of either a specialized nurse or specialized doctor in the area. And the psychiatrists do a good job. And many people do come to me, truthfully. Because you're going to get stuck, you have to find somebody, basically, right?
You need somebody.
Okay? So we have a large population, just as everywhere else in the world, I would believe, of underdiagnosed people with hyperactivity disorders or with autism. So if you go to like jail, you're going to find a lot of people who are hyperactive or autistic in a jail, right?
Yes.
You get me? They were never diagnosed, put themselves in all kind of problem, and then they end up in that situation. So one of the things we have to start doing is trying to, or the parents at least, take the kids somewhere to see someone, and we start interventions early enough, because a lot of these hyperactive kids, for example, will end up doing wrong things. But they could have had help before. either therapy-wise or medication-wise, that you don't reach that point.
Yes, yes.
So, like I said, there are all aspects to the conversation.
Yeah.
So even from early on, if you have a baby who 3, 4, 5 years old and just they broke up everything and thing, try to figure out what they're going with,
Yeah.
or they go to school, they get a lot of trouble. You have to intervene.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't leave that alone.
So we have to stop this thing where I hear some people say, "Ooh, you go on, we right now, all right, we are cool down directly." What's the difference between that is a serious problem you need to look into, or just a spoiled child?
So when you become disruptive in the home and in the class or the school, when you get aggressive and the kid they beat up other kids, or someone they like fight and then they stab you with a pencil, things like that, then you have to start to think this is more than just the usual normal hyperactivity of childhood, right? You have to start to notice little things about your own child, no? That I have 4 kids and this one they want to would behave totally different, then something is not right. Right? And more Belizean, the population is waking up to knowing that, because there's more information out there, more social media and all that, that, you know what, we do have some resources that we can use. We have more therapists, right, that can help. Because medication is never your first thing, it's always interventions otherwise. We have more special education people being trained. So more and more you have that you can intervene. We have groups that are trying to help, right? And a big shout out to Autism Belize, they try and help, because a lot of patients come to me who found their way through that group.
By getting that group. Yeah. I'm going to touch that because the autism issue is a very, very important issue. But I want to go back to the idea then of medication, because we've heard complaints that the Ministry of Health has not had certain kinds of medication specifically for help to persons with psychological issues.
Truthfully, they have improved. Make a drink on the water.
Yeah, please.
Truthfully, they have improved. You do have basic things that are available, and sometimes you get samples and stuff from somebody, right? As always, certain medications are pricey or cost more. And a system like ours, it's kind of hard for someone to decide, boy, I'm going to buy one pill for $10 each to give away. It's kind of hard to make that decision, truthfully. Now, do we need better medications, and do they exist? Well, yes, they exist, right? Obviously enough. And the better your medication, the better the side effect profile, which means that the side effect less, and the better they work for people. And you might have longer acting medications, so people have to receive or could receive less of it. That every day you have to look for anything like that, right? So they can always do better. But yeah, there are a couple of medications that have been added on that are now available. Not always can you run out, but you do have that can help.
I have a brother, a religious brother, and he has a mental problem. And sometimes we talk, and he says to me, Brother Nuri, the thing when they give me, when I take it, I feel like I'm just lethargic, and I don't want to feel like that, so I don't take it.
That's about the side effect profile when bad come in, which means you have better and better things to do. But if you don't have the thing, you have to use your gut. So like I say, the really nice stuff, I don't think any government want to buy.
Okay, right? Very expensive.
Because it's expensive, that's the thing, no?
But is it available?
It is available.
All right, good. So you have to prescribe it and you have to pay.
You have to go buy it.
So you might end up paying $20 a pill because it's...
you have to go buy. And then, as a large segment of our population, truthfully can't even buy Tylenol, no? Right? We like say, buy everything good. Yeah, but if you live on the street and on the ground, no good. Yeah. Right? You live in a regular neighborhood, we they lie to ourselves, right? We like say, everything good, and that's not true, man, right?
Looking at psychological trauma, and you and I have talked about this before when you were on the show. And first of all, tell us about what is a definition of this thing called trauma. Is it something that happens just once and then that's gone, or what is trauma?
So actually, trauma is a disturbance to your brain function, right? Be it a physical disturbance, like you knock your head too hard, all right? Or you get one impact, right? Like, for example, remember when you used to talk about people who shell shock, like in a World War I? Well, now you call it post-traumatic stress disorder, where things impact you so greatly, it affects your brain function. Like with the Vietnam War, who a lot of people, soldiers gone crazy.
Crazy, so-called speak.
So you can have impacts from things that happen to you, death of whatever person in your life, right? For example, or witnessing a crime, especially like a murder, things that impact you can give you trauma. Things that happen around you that give you too much anxiety that you can't handle, that's trauma, right? So you can have external issues that affect you, or you can have actually physical injuries that also affect you.
So how do you address the issue of trauma? Let's start first with that person who is in the home listening to you, and then secondly, in a structured way, if there a way that we can address.
Well, you have to recognize that you've been impacted by something, right? That's the first thing. And then I will think if you need the help, you seek the help that you need.
If I lose a loved one, not necessarily but violent, I love my mom and then my mom dead, and I'm traumatized by the loss, how long normally should I be in that grief before I come out of that?
So a normal grief, normal is a word we don't like use sometimes, it could be different things.
Right.
But a normal grief reaction to something like that, very close family, probably about 2 years or so.
Wow.
So if you're 5-10 years down the road and you still got a problem, you need to help yourself.
All right. So that 2 years though,
it's normal to cry and miss someone.
Okay, but every day you're disrupting my activity, or is it?
No, it should not disrupt your activity, but you can feel less pain and
the remembrance of that loss.
That's okay.
So it's okay to feel that and not feel like I'm being too soft, etc. Particularly men.
And it's always good to express yourself, no?
Yeah.
And like I said, if you recognize it, you can't find. But the other problem here now is cost. Because within the public system, I don't know how many therapists you have, for example. And within the private system, you have quite a few. But there's a cost to it. So if you make only $200 a week, you can't go pay no therapist every week, man. It's not possible, no? So that's another aspect of the thing that we have to look at.
Can the religious community help in that process by offering free counseling that is not proselytizing? In other words, I don't come to you to convert you, but I come to you to help you through that grieving process.
Well, of course, you have lots of people go to leaders of their community or leaders of their churches, whatever church it is. You have people who do that to get comfort, right? Because they can comfort you. And many people are trained to do discomfort, like you, for example, that you know how to try and help, right, in time of that kind of need.
So you would advise those lay preachers who are really full of spirit, they really, really want to help.
They can fill a gap.
But you would suggest that they get some kind of training so that they know what
you need to be trained because you have to know how to confront certain situations because in that you give bad advice.
Yeah. So bleeding heart is not enough. You need some
you need a little bit of training in it too. Right.
We know too that this thing of trauma it's coming out of some environmental factors. If you're talking about 2 years of grief, and I just see my brother get shot down, bleeding in the street, before the police even get there to investigate and pull him up, and I'm going through everybody around me, the bar, and it takes a long time before
that is where like the therapy sessions come in, or the talking, or the counseling, or whatever you want to call it. That is where that comes in and helps.
Yeah, but I leave boy where they walk around and just to watch that now, who know him know nothing, he drop out of school, but he's still as a human being being affected by that.
Right.
Where does he go? And how do we deal with the trauma that is affecting him? I know you're going to my area now, but I'm saying that we average Belizean need to understand that we can't just brush it off as an item in the news.
And that is where the social services come in, and that is where we sometimes have a lack of resources. We're just not training enough people because all kind of reasons, including lack of finances or perceived lack of finances. So that is where, if you have a kid, things happen like that. They're school age, they're in school. All schools should have 1 or 2 counselors or maybe more. That's what they don't have. So it don't exist. So you start to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
And then when you're 15, 16, now you have this hate in your heart and you don't get revenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So at every point where you see people getting hurt, you have to try and intervene. So if you have people in school, you can.
Yeah.
But you have to have the resource behind it to be able to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose you don't have that counseling in your school, but you just never get it. Or suppose your parent or your people never have money for get you to a therapist. You just never get it.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
Let's move to another area, and that is the area of dementia. Each time you've come here, you've touched on that subject, and the reason I keep touching that subject is because it's out there, and we sometimes are in denial about it. But some of us don't really understand that it has a graduation process. So can you tell me what would be mild dementia and what would be the steps towards serious dementia where it person start getting violent?
All right, so we always get this question, right? You have older people who start to get forgetful. So we have a thing called age-related memory problems. That's like normal thing.
Okay.
You recognize you're forgetful, you forget certain things,
Yeah.
you have to write down, you listen, so. And that is age-related, right? The memory when we're small, and like when we're small, meaning younger, and like when we get older. So you do have a little bit of issue with that, but I know something dangerous. It's not an illness.
So should people worry about that? I ask you that because that the mama.
Well, they can.
You forget so you put your key.
They can exercise their brain by doing things to exercise your brain, like reading proper things, no Facebook and so.
Yeah.
By doing little exercise, only 20 minutes, 3-4 times a week. You can exercise your brain by your crossword puzzles and your math puzzles. You do things to help your brain along,
yes.
right? You can get into drawing or art or singing or music, something to work it out. So that helps a whole lot. There are some supplements that people say, oh, and you can go read it. This may help you just a tiny bit, a little bit. With what you have, like magnesium, for example, for brain, right? At a certain dose, for example. And then you have a thing called mild cognitive impairment, where a little more than just the ordinary forgetfulness. And that way people get a little more forgetful, others notice, but not everyone with that will reach Alzheimer's or dementia, right? While that they won't, right? Just a certain percentage will, between 25-50%. And then with mild Alzheimer's, now you start to be much more forgetful, right? But you're not aware of your forgetfulness, but you can still function. So people still they wash and they cook and again forget the stove they on or they find the water and things like that, right? But they're still functional. And then when you go more than that, you get moderately forgetful. That is when you start to have more behavioral issues, okay? And you might want to start to not want to stay home, you want to go out, you want to wander around, things like that. And when you get severely demented, well, then you're within your own world. You stop recognizing your family and friends. And you're in your own little world, and you stop doing everything, and you may stop talking at the end, right? You're not talk again. And that
is there a time period for this progression?
Well, so the youngest person ever diagnosed with dementia was diagnosed at 19 years old in China. So dementia, Alzheimer's can happen at any age basically, but the usual age is after 60. But you can have early dementia. And you have different types of dementia, okay?
Yes,
I'm talking just Alzheimer's. Because there are other types of dementia that are rarer, that we see too, even in Belize. So most times after 60, and so by the time you go 80, 85, you're very, very demented, okay?
Yeah.
So it takes a little while, but it happens. Now, curiously enough, around a quarter of people over 85 have dementia. 25%. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Right?
Indeed.
So when you think of older populations, they have to take care of a lot of old people who no good. Like South Korea and Japan and so for example.
Yes, very old persons.
Right? So
who become almost like children again that you
so that our cost, no?
Yeah.
So in Belize, the cost is borne by the family. So in Belize, we don't really put people in a house, so no, we're not doing anything, right? Not usually. So you have a lot of people who have dementia in the homes, moderate usually. Because when it's severe, they can't start to carry in a hospital and things happen, nothing go wrong. Because they don't move, they get bed sores or pneumonia or bladder infections or intestinal infections, things like that. But a lot of times you start to see these patients when they start to get agitated, moderate dementia, right? So when they start to get agitated, and when you start to have fight and quarrel home, and they think that people are thief and they want to go boat, and you know, that is when you start to have a problem. With mild, no, right?
So there's another personality disorder that's called OCD. Does that have any physical brain? Well, you say everything has its brain, but how would that? How do you deal with that? Because people say, you know, I have to go back home because I'm not sure if I left the stove on. And
well, actually, that be different from OCD. OCD means you have this anxiety and compulsion that you have to do something. Because if you don't do it, you get agitated, or you feel sick, or you feel bad. So a little difference, right? So that you require usually therapy and medication intervention to try and help people like that. All right, and those kind of people you also find sometimes get themselves in trouble, no? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
By what? By doing what?
Then get overly aggressive.
Yeah,
right?
So
Kind of get over anxious.
Because they think that the only my way, you know.
My way or no way, no?
I know why. Yeah, nothing else except. All right. There's also this area of where we're challenged to deal with individuals who are what I call hard to deal with. And not only I got this opinion, but that several people got this opinion on this individual. And particularly if this individual is in a supervisory position, it can be hell on the rest of us. Do we just accept that, tolerate that, or do we? Is there a way that we can address a situation?
So that happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
You have many people who, I don't want to say a wrong word, and just behave differently, okay? And so some of us we have feelings of insecurity, inferiority, and so we kind of supersede what we should do to try to cover that. And then we have some of us who just think we're better than everybody, right? And go overboard with what we do. Those are personality issues. But if that person not accept it and don't want to seek help to try and help themselves, professional help, well, then you start to have a problem, no? And you have people like that, right? And you have many politicians like that, and they know how to help themselves. So everybody gets stuck, right? Because when you know or think you know everything and you don't, then we have a problem. That like can happen even within medical community. If you go to a doctor who think you know and don't know, you kind of get messed up, right? The best doctor are the one who know what you don't know. If you know what you don't know, you're not put yourself in trouble. But you have individuals like that too. And that's what you do justice say. You don't know what you don't know. So you think you know more than what you know, and you get one problem.
You're getting very philosophical there, brother, which is good, which is good. Let me jump again because of time. Aneurysm. Another one of the things that bothers us. Aneurysm, the fear that, you know, maybe we work too hard, or we think too hard, or we're doing something, consuming something, and then our fuse blow. We get stroke. It's a concern. How would you address that, sir?
All right, so maybe backtrack one little bit.
Yeah.
Around 85% of strokes are because the blood vessels get blocked up, right? Something block it. And then the blood no pass, and the brain behind it dies. You call it ischemic. Around 15% that because the
So
blood vessels
is that
break.
diet or is that?
That is usually due to lifestyle that we have when
It's
no
not
good.
genetic. Is that?
Then that happens because the artery gets blocked up because either we have a heart issue, in the blood vessels in the neck we have an issue, or within the brain itself we have an issue with the blood vessels and they get blocked, usually by high cholesterol or high triglycerides or high blood sugar, things like that, right? And then 15% and then the blood vessel pop, like when people pressure too high, and the brain, the vessels in the brain under the arteries under pressure, and then pop and you bleed. You call that hemorrhagic stroke. So within your hemorrhagic strokes, you have a small subset of aneurysms that break. So 1%, everybody, 1 out of every 100 have aneurysm for whatever reason. The bad, no? Of that 1%, 6% of that 1%, right, one pop in a 1 year. So you have to be really, really unlucky for an aneurysm pop. But it happens, right? Half the time when the aneurysm pop, the person dies wherever they are. And half the time they reach hospital. So the ones who reach the hospital when they want a small amount are the ones you could help, right? So how you help that? Well, you have to manage the bleeding, manage whatever issues they have with brain swelling and so. And then you have to fix the aneurysm. The new way of fixing it now is not opening up the brain. It's with a catheter through an artery into the brain and you block it up. You put some thing like some springs in the aneurysm and block it up.
Like seal, you weld it.
Yeah, and then you don't have a problem again for make it pop and bleed, no? But that is a very like isolated, really small, so those are isolated, they don't happen again. The big problem here is having strokes.
Yeah.
Right?
I have seen stroke victims that come back from their
paralysis.
Yeah, their paralysis. I remember famous Joey Morales 50 years ago. Remember Joe on King Street there? He
used to live on First Street.
Yeah, he used to walk like this when he had a stroke, but he was walking. I don't know if it was 6 months, but when I noticed Joe, he's walking right. So can you work out your stroke in that way?
So that are kind of like we say, luck. Why we say that? So it depends on where you get the stroke. You can get a very tiny stroke in a really wrong place and stay totally damaged. Or you can have a big stroke in an area that doesn't affect you so much and you stay good afterwards. You will have little issues, right? But you stay good in the sense that you could move around, you could think, you could talk. So it depends on what part of the brain get affected by the stroke. And that gives you your recovery process.
Yes.
So when somebody like me look for a CT scan and is stroking a certain spot in my mind, I think this person get messed up, right? Just like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because of where it is.
Where in the brain.
So the localization of your issue kind of tells you how bad or how good you will stay. And therapy helps, obviously. Not physical therapy, occupational therapy, if you need speech therapy, all therapies help. But if you get damaged bad enough, no therapy help. You want to stay damaged. Right?
So, and it would have to be from a professional to be able to know exactly
brain
where,
doctor will tell you,
right?
or a stroke doctor will tell you more.
So is the stroke doctor that will tell you could work this thing out as compared to...
Well, we are always do therapy for people because you can't give up on people and you can't get them to give up on themselves. You can't tell them, you want to get better. You have to encourage them.
Yes.
You know they want to stay damaged, but you can't tell them that. You have to encourage.
But doctor, if I think that maybe the lie is not a problem.
No, but you have to encourage.
You just encourage me, but you know I'm in a bad shape.
You encourage them.
And I say doubt you anyway.
You encourage them. You're not lying to them.
I see. Okay, very good. What's the frequency? I think you said it earlier. What was the frequency of stroke in Belize?
Like how many strokes we have?
Like when...
the percentages of different types.
Wise, yeah.
Like 85% that when one clot block the artery, and like 15% that when you bleed. Right? That Belize, even me, right? Nobody like drink medicine.
Yeah.
We're very non-compliant.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of people who know they have high blood pressure, then okay. And they end up with strokes where they bleed, right?
Yes.
More than one time sometimes. And then most of us really not go check with pressure because we think we don't feel nothing. The problem is 9 out of 10 people when pressure high, no feel nothing. You don't know. Right? 9 out of 10, you don't know.
Yes.
Only 1 out of 10 feel something. Then they might go get checked. So a lot of people out there are hypertensives or other illnesses like sugar too, but they don't get checked, so they don't know. Then they drop them in a stroke on the street, and then they pressure high for 10 years and never know because they never did get checked. And they have access to places to get it checked, but they just not do it. With our population, right?
You know, there's so many little instruments now, monitors, which are not very expensive for you to be able to check your glucose and to be able to check your pressure. In fact, I see one the other day, if I'm not mistaken, was about $99 US, which is about a little around $200 Belize, for something that could be very useful for you. Is it that we just don't know that we could invest?
No, people know, but then you have two things to that. First, for a lot of people, $100 is a lot of money. That's why when the politician bring 50 for you, you think you feel like, boy, I get $1,000. That 50 look like that to you. Because you know, see 50, you see that now and again. Right? And then we get bad for no good reason, and for a little bit of money. Or we don't know 50 now, like 300 to 500 now, right? But still. So, money not one issue for try to buy anything because you look for food, you know, you look for, you get me?
Yeah.
The second thing is that most of the machines we buy are battery operated. So the batteries have to basically be new when you use anything. If you use it for a few times and the battery go down,
and
you know, wrong reading
yeah.
for the both machines that you talk about. So if you want to buy good batteries, like 2 Duracell, most can cost you about $6. People don't want to go buy no $6 every week to battery, truthfully. You get me? That's a lot of money, man. You know, a certain segment of our population. Maybe for me, you know what a lot of money, truthfully. So your battery have to always be good. So the machine is expensive, you have to put in battery in it. You just not do it, man. Right?
Let me move now to autism, because I know that there are many autistic young children in Belize, whereas before we didn't seem to focus very much on autism. Talk about what is autism and what are the stages, early expression of it, and is it treatable, and where do we go with it? And I'm saying that in the context of the little boy that walked out of the school,
right,
and unfortunately lost
So many people don't know this, right? Maybe even professionals don't know, right? Around 1.5 to 4% of any population will be autistic. That's a ton load of people.
And what is autism?
That's how I come to right now.
Okay.
So you have a lot of people who are autistic, they don't know.
Okay.
So autism is actually a social interaction disorder, which can be mild to very severe, right? That's basically that. Basically what happens is, first, we don't know one definite reason why you're autistic, but second, when we're inside a mom's, the uterus, the womb, they develop, and we're born, we got 20% more connections than we need. And as we grow, we lose the connections, right? As we grow, we lose them. But some people don't. And so if you're over-connected, then obviously things won't go no good. You're going to be maybe hypersensitive to all kinds of situations, including social, including touch, including smell, including sight, taste, texture, right? That is when you have autistic kids, okay? You can have other things associated to that, like hyperactivity, for example, or other mental health issues associated with that. So autism, we just don't know how to socialize properly, and that implies the way how you live, everything, right? Because our brain doesn't work the way it should, right? But there is no like specific reason for that. Nobody knows exactly why. You got all kind of thinking about it. So that's one thing. You got theoretically, you got 4 different types of autism, right? And autism is divided into 3 big groups. You have types, then you have levels, right? And those levels are divided into sub-levels, right? So when you see the person, you kind of have to get that. Well, you have questionnaires that you have to go through that you kind of know at what level they are. And most people are in the first level, which means they're okay. They can go to school, they can learn, they may need therapy, for try help, and things like that, right? And so with minimal support, but some support, they won't get it in a life. They still not be totally, because everything is, society give normal different meanings, right? But they can be basically normal in a sense. They do have little issues with how they behave and so, or how they socialize, or how they interact. In the second level, then you need more support, right? You may need the special tutoring, special aids, things like that. And in the third level, well, you need substantial support, and then you have probably speech difficulties, and they might consider you retarded, but not, you know, really are. It's just that the way how you learn totally different from other people, right? And so those are the kids sometimes who, like the lead boy, who just do things without really understand what is happening. So they do dangerous stuff, for example, or they hurt themselves, like bite, bang, hitting like that, no? Because they don't understand, no? So when they get all this stress, they feel that way. So a child at that level, for example, because you get lost, you also want to run, because you're anxious, and you don't know how to deal with it. And that kid just started to run, right? Because he get over anxious, but people misinterpret it.
So he run, but you don't know exactly
where him going, exactly. They do things without even know.
Is there a blame that can be assigned in a case like that? Is it that you were not
I don't like to use the word
supervised?
blame in that kind of case, but society is to blame. We don't care about each other, right? You get me?
But
and maybe there's a reason we don't, because of the way how things are on the street. Now you look at somebody wrong, they want to shoot you or stab you. You get me? You go to somebody, kid, they want to misinterpret it, and you might go get hurtful. And people think that, but I don't want to touch this kid because someone might come and hurt me because they think they tried kidnapping or something. You know that our society has reached that point.
Do you know that came to my mind because one of the reaction that we had to it is, look how much people pass early child. And I said, but you forget that we tell people, be careful. You know, you watch anybody when they try to touch a child with enough of his child, because he might kidnap the child. So people are saying, me I left you alone. So we you know.
We got really low in how we think and care for each other.
It's an unfortunate situation. All right, let's we're getting close to the end. I wanted to see if I could touch as many things as possible of what I hear people talking about. Stuttering and stammer. Is that because some people say, I used to stutter, but I learned how to correct that, and so now you wouldn't even know that I stutter. So what causes stuttering, or we used to say stammer?
All right, so people get this confused all the time. It's not only that. So if you stutter, you stammer, or think of dyslexia, for example, you do not have a real brain problem, right? You have more one psychological anxiety issue, which is different, all right? No, anxiety is a thing where some people just born more anxious than other people. I like to tell people like anxiety running a family sometime. Like you see like a whole set of family, and I can think of some right now, right? And everybody anxious, right? You get me? That like one thing,
like a DNA thing.
One genetic thing, no? So that's one thing, right? So is that like a really bad thing to have? And with training, you can improve it. Right? You learn to speak with more pauses, think more clearly through your sentences, and that's a training. And you can learn not to stutter or stammer, because I know a really brain, organic, or structural problem. Right? Just more anxiety thing.
So
the same thing with dyslexia.
So if I find one man 35, 40 years and he still...
He had an underlying problem from before, from he was young, right? And he just never trained himself to. Because you can.
Because I know there's some people who can talk normal, but the minute they get excited or angry...
That's why, that's the anxiety part.
Can't bring it out, you know?
That's the anxiety part, right? Okay.
What about this term that is becoming very popular now, anxiety attack? You know?
Well, panic attacks.
Or panic attack.
So actually, no reading kind of thing always exists, you know. It's just that we don't notice it
It's just
before.
becoming more popularized.
Yeah, exactly. I think because of the way how we're interconnected now, from we start to have internet and then social media and all that, people notice more things, truthfully.
Yes.
But they've always been there. So some people, when they get overwhelmed under certain circumstances, right, they can't handle it. They get overloaded. right? So they manifest themselves, or their body manifests their stress a different way, involuntarily. They don't really want it to happen, no? Involuntarily. So they get panic attacks for trying to deal with whatever they feel. That's how they exteriorize or externalize their problem.
Yes.
Everybody different, no?
I'll ask this as the last question because we're running out of time. Self-medication and narcotization, particularly with what's available, which is alcohol and marijuana. And clearly, if you were in a diagnostic situation, they say, well, you don't need to do that. Then you think you're at a higher level, more expensive at the drugstore, could solve, let's say, anxiety. But I can't afford that $30, $40. So I could get one bad man. A bad man will make I don't have to think about a boss will misuse me today, or top up, or to red top, or whatever the name. So the point I'm asking you for is this idea of the population self-medicating because of dealing with their own issues as compared to a drunkard when you just find small little drink.
All right, so let me say this. You have everyday alcoholics, you have weekend alcoholics, you have once a month alcoholics.
Wow.
Right? That means that they have to go drink.
Okay.
They might not think it that way, but they have to, because if they don't, things go wrong with the way how they think.
Okay.
So you have people who every time they have a problem, they have to go drink. They have to.
Yeah.
Right? They might not think it that way, but when you talk to them, that's how they work.
Yeah. And they normalize it by saying, boy, I need a drink.
So you have alcoholism at different levels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. What they don't realize is that alcohol is a depressant.
Mm.
So if you get drunk enough, you start to cry, no?
Mm.
And it can be so depressed that you start breathe. So if you get very, very drunk, you can actually just start breathe, no?
Yeah.
So alcohol is a depressant. Not only that, it shrinks your brain. So eventually you'll get stupid, no? If you drink too much.
Yeah.
You know, I think correct. With everybody.
Yes.
Well, the same thing happened to weed too, although we don't like think about it and say it, no? You can shrink your brain. But we not only can shrink your brain, you can shrink your seed too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So that's what happens. So
I don't think a lot of people catch the last one, but go ahead, please.
They catch it, but I believe. So, well, some may, right? So the deal here is that we use crutches to help ourselves. And everyone does to a certain point. All we got with crutches, right? Some not so good, some minor, maybe or minimal. So the alcohol is a crutch to try and confront certain situations. But we just hide the situation. Right? We don't resolve the situation. So we have to start to figure out how we can resolve
Yeah.
personally, right? And as a nation, how we can resolve situations without crutches, any crutch, including alcohol.
But we live in a culture of coping mechanisms by choice. So you got one person who will tell you, why I take that shot of rum or whatever it is in the evening, or you might want to use one nickel metal, not criticize mine. Because I could function just like how you could function. Mm-hmm. Isn't that in a way normalizing an abnormality that will eventually catch up?
Well, that is why you have a thing called a spectrum of individuals in a society. Everybody got their own way for deal with things. Mm-hmm. And eventually any society will normalize certain things, right? Mm-hmm. So now, it is normal here now, and I see it every day, that you pass somebody on the street, they smoke and they weed and so on, that is normalized now, while before the police come and string you up, no? You pass and see people walking with a bottle of beer and so in your hand. If it's illegal or not, I don't know, but that's normalized now, because I see it every time, right? Especially on the time, weekend, like you pass by the street, man, they walk with a bottle of beer in their hand. Not they happen, right? So certain things get normalized, right? So they sit down in front of a Chinese shop, they drink alcohol any time of day or night has been normalized, right? So what happens? All kind of things we normalize in a society. Then we don't see it as wrong, or as
a problem.
A problem.
Yeah.
Right? A coping mechanism. We don't see it as that. We see it as, oh, that's normal. But when you think about it, actually, no, you know. Kind of like that all over, right? Okay. But the Belize, man, we have a very unique, idiosyncratic people. right? We do a lot of things differently.
Yes.
Right? So when foreigners come, sometimes they think like, what is wrong with you know people, no? Because it's a normal behavior. But we don't see it, because we're in this little zoo, right? We don't see it.
A little zoo. Doctor, thank you. We really appreciate your input. And as I said, it's sort of periodic. We try to, and I got you in our diary, by the way. This is the time for Dr. Sosa again. I'll give you some last comments that you might want to make before we close off.
Well, thank you, Nuri, and thank you to the listeners. And I appreciate your invite all the time. And I always try and come. Sometimes I can't make it, but I try.
Yes, sir.
And I thank you for the conversation, yes. And I hope people at least get some little nugget out of it. And I just want to wish everyone a good election season, and yes. Don't get stressed.
Yes.
And if you want to go, you go, and if you don't want to go, you don't go. Or if you want to do like me and just write in someone's name, and because you don't have someone to vote for, I don't mean anything, right? You can still go. So I just wish that everyone has a very good day.
Yes,
stress-free, no anxieties.
Yes, indeed.
Right? And live good.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'll use this opportunity to close off by thanking those who listened to us all through and watched through this program. We thank Mr. Arthur Usher, manager of the Hub. And of course, we thank our esteemed Dr. Sosa for his input, very educational every time he comes here. We also have to thank our staff. Downstairs we have Brother Larry Guerrero. Upstairs we have Sister Belial. And of course we have Mr. Clifton Lewis. And we're gone until tomorrow, God willing. Stand strong, stand firm, do the right thing. For now, we're gone.
Enhanced service